In this quick Blender tutorial, we'll create a 3D abstract object with glowing energy effects, perfect for beginners and fun to customize. Before we jump in, don't forget to check out my free beginner Blender tutorial right here on this channel. Perfect if you're just getting started. And if you want to level up fast, I've also got some awesome paid courses linked below. Now let's dive in and create this 3D abstract object with glowing energy effect in Blender. First of all, we need to add a cube. It's good to turn on the screen cascade. It allows you to see and follow along easier. You notice that if I enter tab, I will have access to this pie menu. To enable that function, you can go to Edit, Preferences, and in the Preferences go to Key Map, and make sure to turn on Tab for Pie menu, and save your preferences. That allows you to switch really fast between all of these modes. We have Object Mode and Edit Mode. In this tutorial, we're mostly switching between these two, but you will see sculpting, texture paint, and other modes as well. And I will use Shift and Z to switch between solid mode and a wireframe mode, which is really handy. By looking from top orthographic, we scale it down a little bit, almost with a half. So hold down S and Control and scale it down a little bit. Now let's press 3. I select this face and I just extrude it downward. Now select this one and extrude it in the x-axis. You can just move them a little bit further. Once you're done, just take it the application of one of these faces. Shift-D, take a duplication and put it somewhere near to it, and then extrude it once again. You can hold on Control to snap it, and in this case you can align these. Shift-D, take another duplication of this one and move it beside it. Now let's press L on both of these objects and we move those down a little bit. Once you're done, let's look at from front orthographic. Press Shift Z and I think we can move this one. Press L just a little bit towards x-axis. Now press Control and R for both of these, and then we press 3 again. We select these two faces except these at the back side. You notice what I have selected, and then we extrude it just a little bit. That's enough. Now we have that actually 3D dimensional that we are looking for. That's because when I try to rotate, so I will see these 3D dimensional more in depth. The next part is beveling the edge of this first object. We press 2 for edge. You notice 1, 2, 3. Vertex, edge, and face. If you are really beginner, you can watch my beginner tutorial on YouTube channel, Art Studio 313. So let's grab it. You notice that I selected because I'm looking from top of the graphic, so I can't see it. So let's press Ctrl and B to bevel it. And here I like to put 24 segment, and now we can play around with a width. So I like to make it really round about here. And then now let's select these inner, Control B, and we set it to 24 again, but about 0.5. Let's try 0.6. Because if I just set it to 1, we will get a very not looking good result. So we actually try to have half of these bevel or extrude. 0.5 or 6 looks really good. Very basic. So I like to enter tab and extrude these face further towards x-axis. That's for the sake of camera animation. I'm making sure to all the parts should be captured in the camera angle. Let's press Ctrl S. You will see that I already have one, but let's save it. So that's important to save your object, your project properly. It sometimes happens that Blender will crash and you will lose your lovely project that you spent hours and hours on it. So press Shift and A and we add a plane, and this plane should be the background. So we want to scale it really large. I like to recenter it. For recentering, you can press Shift and X and cursor to select it, but because the origin point is at the corner, we can right click and set origin to geometry, or you can just choose it by hand. So that's perfect. GZ, select the plane, GZ, and move it down. And let's enter tab once again. And we go to edit mode. We select these faces. I like to press, let's press 1 for vertices. It's better to use the vertex in this case. I like to move them up a little bit. Or we can do a very interesting trick. I leave this one at this stage, and instead I like to move this one up. So now we have created another filling in depth, you will see. So this one is in this level and this one is higher. So that's the basic abstract object, 3D object, which is already. So the modeling part is finished. Now we can go directly to the shader and start creating the materials. So for that, we will switch to material preview by pressing the Z, and you notice everything is pretty white because there is no material added. For adding material, we can click on material properties and we select the main object and we press on new to generate a new material. You can rename it, but I leave it as it is. And you can actually, if you have a hex code, you can paste it right here, which I have in a hex code, or you can just go and play around with the colors that you prefer. In this case, I found this nice color works good to make a dark actually piece of abstract object, and the background as well should be dark in this case. So we select the background and we add a new material, and I will paste my hex code. And then notice that we have to change a few settings such as a roughness, which I will put it to 1 because I don't like to see any glazziness. And for this one, we can set the roughness to 0.6, and let's open up diffuse, and you can play around with the diffuse, specular, not diffuse. So notice how these will affect your object. It will actually catch the light surrounding. So let's leave it to 0.4 or 5. So we are done with the adding material. But if I just press Z and we go to render mode, you already know that I am using scene word and scene light. So this is without enabling. So we have to turn on both scene word and scene light in order to get a good lighting render. Otherwise, we will get a pure black solid image when we try to render it out without turning this to on. Now we are just using Blender HDRI to affect our world, and you will see if I just rotate it, it will rotate. So, but I will turn on these two. So of course I haven't any light in my scene, but if I just add a light, you will see how it will affect my object. Now I just go and try 200, you'll see it will affect. By turning it off, the light in my scene no longer will affect my object in the 3D viewport. So let's remove this light. Currently we don't need it, and because I like to use the curves, and we want to use emission light for actually lighting up my scene. But as for the HDRI, you will see if I just click on this word, we will see this nice setup, and that's actually HDRI that I set it by default. So let's open up another panel. We go to shader editor, let's press N, and we go to word, and you notice, let's delete these a few, and it's a pretty simple urban street, which if I click on this open image, you'll see this is the HDRI that I downloaded from HDRI Haven. You can just search its name, urban street. You'll see there is no harsh light except this small area. It's not like a sunny day, it's a cloudy day, which is suitable for my scene. And I set the strength to 2, and you have to play around with the z-axis only connected to generated, and that's the thing that you only need to know. Let's get rid of that. But now we have to block out the light. So how we can do that? Well, we can use another panel to block out the light. So for that, let's press Shift A, and we add another panel, and let's look at from top orthographic. Let's move it in at the center and scale it up. If it's, let's move it up again. Why I'm seeing it like this? So GZ, and you notice if I just scale it up, let's set it to bounding box, because setting it up to 3D view 3D cursor, it will scale whatever object you have in your 3D viewport, it will be scaled based on the position of the 3D cursor. Now let's zoom closer in this area, and now you will see a very interesting shape. Let's turn a floor. So here is the plan which I have added. Here is before and after. I like to make it bigger, but in the same time I like to move it upper to the sky to make it like a cloud which affect my world. Now it's a lot better. That's great. Let's select this floor and let's make it a little bit bigger so that when we try to add the camera, we should have enough space to capture everything. So let's press T to get rid of these toolbars. In this case, we can save more space. So that's perfect. Now it's time to add the camera. For adding the camera, we can press Shift A. Let's first switch to wireframe mode or solid mode at least. And in the viewport shading, still we are in solid mode. We can change a few things, such as matte cap. Using a matte cap is always great, and we have different matte cap, which is really interesting. You can switch and choose whatever you like. Let's set it to this first one, and for the camera, we can press Shift A and we go to this menu and choose the camera. And you notice that the camera is actually whatever object that you will import in your 3D object in your 3D viewport will be placed based on your 3D cursor. Notice if I just press Shift and actually right click and we try to add another mesh, and you notice that it will locate it exactly at the 3D cursor position. So that's good to know. But now I like to align my angle first, and with that, if I just now press 0, you notice that we will switch to the camera perspective. So by pressing 0, we will switch to camera perspective, and by pressing 0 again, we will actually just look in through the 3D viewport. So, but there is another cool trick. If I just now looking through the camera perspective, I can click on this lock, and now it is locked. But if it's not locked, if I just try to rotate, I lose the perspective. So let's press 0 and lock it. So you can actually do everything manually by hand, but I found a very interesting trick that saves your time. I'm looking from this perspective and I will capture it. So for that, we can press Ctrl Alt and 0. In this case, the camera will be placed through the perspective that we are looking for, and then it is locked, and now we can just try to fix it. So you can rotate it how you want, but it is actually a square shape. So let's change it. To change it, we go to Format first in the output, and then Format, and then we can type manually 1920 by 1080. We have a few presets that you can choose, but let's go with Full HD. You can select your main object and we press dot or numpad period. In this case, we can just focus on this object. Let's find a good perspective. I'll leave this area empty. That's because in case if you want to have a text will pop up or a place to introduce something, it is good to have. Okay, that's great. So that's for the alignment, but we're not still done. If I select the camera, we go to camera setting or the object data properties, and then in the focal length we can play around with the focal. If I just set it to almost 10 or less than that, we will get a fisheye effect. But let's go further than that. 140. Now we will see things more flat. Okay, so it's hard to control it, to control the camera in this way, which is not interesting. But I have another trick which we can control it. So let's press 0 and we can select it. Press shift, select the object, shift and S, selection to cursor first, and we go and choose the empties. In this case, sphere should be fine, and that's, we will see it white because we are looking from top of the graphic and we want to see these actually plain for blocking out the light. Let's turn it on, and this place is a good place to actually control the camera. So I imported this empty because I want to parent my camera to the empty, and with the help of this empty I can rotate my camera. Now let's select the camera, hold on shift and select the empty, and control P and choose object and keep transform. You will see this line, and that's mean that the camera is the child, the son or the daughter of this empty, and the empty is his father or parent. Now if I just press 0, you notice that if I just select the empty now, we can press R and just rotate it, and it will be rotate. It allows us to rotate very smoothly. You can press RR 2 times and make all of this cinematic animation. So let's talk about the animation later, and we are done with the camera setting, but of course we want to talk about the animation and want to reuse the camera setting again. But now let's press Z and let's talk about that lightsaber effect. Let's turn the camera and the empty off again to clean everything. Let's turn off the camera and the empty by turning off the eye icon. And now it's time to only focus on glowing energy effect that we want to add, and that's the most interesting part, which actually bring life to our object. Of course, the animation is the final result, which add further life to our scene. So the glowing energy effects, how we can do that, how we can add it. First, we need to enter tab by selecting the object, and then we press 2 for edges. Hold on Alt, and we need actually all of these area. hold on Alt, and you notice that we selected all these edges. Hold on Control and deselect these unnecessary edges. And let's hold on Shift and select further of these lines that we need to actually create that glowing effect, glowing energy effect. So now we press Shift and D to duplicate it, to get duplication of these lines that we selected. And then we want to separate it by pressing P. You still select those, press P and choose selection. Now enter tab and go to object mode. You notice that we have got two objects. So let's name it to main or abstract. It's good to keep things organized. And energy. That sounds good. And this one is for background. And this one blocking. Blocking light. Just to remember things quickly. So now we have the energy which we needed. And for the energy, we want to right click and we need to convert it to curve because it is mesh, and the mesh icon is this triangle. But let's see what is happening if I just convert it to curve. It changed it to the curve. So now it is curve. And if I just enter tab, you notice that we have got two of these actually menus to choose from: object and edit. If I just go to edit mode, there is no longer that big list that we had in the edit mode, but a few of that properties we have got. That's because we are in curve mode, and the curve has its own option. So now it's time to just play around with these. We can press G and Y and just play around with these, with the length of these light energy effect. If you have those, I like to have longer, and if you in less length. So we just need to move those in X and Y. And these, if you I need to make them a little bit less, let's press L on this one, move it down. These two, I like to leave it the length, so I like to have the full length, but this area I like to make it shorter. So let's press L and align it. Adjusting these curves is pretty personal. You can edit it how you want. Now that we are done, we only need to select it. Even we can go to object mode. Then we want to go to the object data properties for the curves. And let's turn it off. Close the shape, and we need to play around with the geometry. In the geometry we have the bevel. In the bevel we have the depth. If I hold down Shift, we can give that some depth. We can zoom closer. Let's switch to wireframe mode, or at least solid mode, and from here you can add more resolution, but let's keep it less because we want to use a glowing effect, and there is no need to make it really smooth. And just hold on Alt hold on shift and play around with the depth. If I zoom closer by holding down Control and middle mouse, you notice that the end of these curves is a hole. So we can choose fill caps to fill that area. But another interesting part is that all the entire shape of these is in the same level, but we need to make the end point of these curves smaller or sharper. Now it looks like a pipe, but let's enter tab and I select these all the edges, all the end point that we want to play around with the end point, and we zoom a little bit and we press Alt S, and you notice what is happening, and this will just affect these endpoints. I'd like to press 0 to make those 0, and you notice what is happening exactly. I like to select these two and hold on shift and select further of these, and I like to subdivide them. Now we can press Alt and S and just play around with it. If I just select these energy and we press number the slash, in this case we can solo everything, solo it, and turn off everything else. And you know, this is what I mean. So we have very sharp at the end, and then we make the rest, we leave the rest as it is. So let's try to do the same thing with these curves. So we can press L, and now we can press Ctrl and I to inverse the selection. So right click and subdivide it by 2 times, and now hold on. You can press W or hold on the second on this and choose the select box or circle, whatever fits for you. Hold on shift and select the end point of this area. In this way you can just select the end point and the starting point, and we can do the same thing. Move it closer, Alt S, and then press 0. Now it's very interesting. Let's press number slash once again to have everything back on the scene. Okay, so now we are done with this interesting part as well, but let's give that some different material, because if I just go to render mode, you notice that nothing is glowing effect. So let's go to material, and we want to have this new button. Let's name it to light or energy, and let's play around with the color. Let's set it to red first, and then we want to go down, turn on emission, and we want to set it to, for example, 100. And you notice this very interesting shape. Actually the base color doesn't affect it, but the color that you want to affect it is this one from here. There is 2 ways for adding the emission. So this is that we currently are using is a principal BSDF, but I like to change it just for emission because I don't like to see all of this stuff, and this is unnecessary. So let's click on this green color or in this area, and we want to choose the emission, if you see it, and now let's set it to 100 again, and we directly can change it to any color that we like. As I said, if you have a hex code, you can just paste it directly as I'm doing, but let's just try other colors, which is very interesting. So the preview is lagging a little bit, and it is very interesting. Let's paste the hex code that I've got. So we're not done yet with setting up these interesting actually lighting energy effect or glowing energy effect. So how we can make it more interesting? Well, we have to switch to solid mode first and make sure to turn on these overlays. And now, because we are looking from top graphic, we have to switch to wireframe mode. Enter tab and go to edit mode. You notice that we are in select box. You can press W, and I like to choose this area, and we press Shift and D to the application. And now we have another copy of these. Enter tab. Make sure to turn on proportional editing. Set it to 5 or 4, or you can use scroll mouse wheel and then press Alt and S. In this case, you will scale it up. But because the size of the proportional editing is really large, we can actually play around with it until we make the start and the end point as it is. I mean the small size, but the center part make it a little bit bigger. Of course, you can change the fall off to any of these, sphere in this case, or let's try sphere, and you notice this interesting effect: constant or random. Random is cool. Let's go to run mode and to see it. So I want to see this jaggedy part, which is not suitable for this case. So let's go to the object data properties, and let's try once again. Set it to sharp, or at least the linear. That's perfect. Let's scale it once more and make it a little bit bigger, and now it's more interesting. So it's a little bit high. Let's make it a little bit down. And I say that's always up to you how you want to customize it. But that's interesting and enough. And let's do the same thing one more time with the same effect and the same method to this area. I like to select these two, Shift and D, and press P, and then go to object mode, choose this one, go to edit mode, right click, subdivide it 2 times, and that's perfect. Alt and S. Let's select these two and select the starting point and end point, and now we can just play around with these, make it closer. Just in y-axis. And you notice that we have got this interesting effect. And just imagine if I just want to animate it, how it will look like. So that's about this until now. So let's move it closer to this area because I don't like to see too much of this area. Oh, where is the empty? Let's turn on and just select the empty. I can't see it. Oh, here is the empty. RR2 time. Let's rotate it a little bit. Zoom in. Interesting, I believe. This area is no energy effect light or no glowing light. So let's enter tab. I like to select these and hold on Control and numpad plus and then press Shift and D and move it in X-axis. Now select these and press Alt-S. Press Alt-S and scale it up. Very tiny effect we have added. Let's, not everything, but select only this piece, press L, subdivide it. Now press Alt-S. And Alt-S for this one and press 0. This allows us to make the endpoint really sharp. Now what's more interesting, I believe. Just a little bit of that effect, I like to see it. We are almost done, but except one important thing, and that's the animation. The animation is divided into two pieces. The first one is the camera animation, and the second one is this glowing effect animation that we are actually done with it already. So for the animation, we need to create another panel for the timeline. In order to add the timeline, we hover our mouse to the corner to see a cursor, and then we move it up. Let's change it to timeline, and let's open up another panel, and in this case I like to join this area, and now we have a full timeline. Or if you want, you can just leave it as it is. Now we have the timeline and then the properties panel. So for this animation we want to use 100 frame, and by default it is 100 frame for me. And let's select the empty. Since we parented the camera to the empty, now it's a lot easier by just animating the empties. Empties is really important and very handy. So we want to add the keyframe only for the X, Y, and Z rotation. So move your mouse on this rotation and press I, and make sure to be in the first frame by clicking on this button. So we are in the first frame, and then we move to the last frame, and then we want to press RR 2 times. It's good to be in solid mode, and you notice if I just press RR 2 times, so first you have to see what you actually want. So want an animation like this. So because actually we want to see the feel the 3D dimensional, and we have a 3D abstract with a glowing effect of light, or the glowing energy effect. So that's good to first use a perspective that is very close and we can see what is in this area. I mean, you notice, so I mean these faces is close to us. It's interesting now. Or we can have a little bit of that, and then once everything is done, you can just click on this auto key, and that's actually update all the keyframes in the channel. And if it's turned off, you just need to right click or just press I to update it. But let's turn on auto keyframe, auto update, and go to the last frame, and then we press RR 2 times, and now I like to see what is inside this area. Oh, interesting. And 100 frame is good because we will get a very smooth animation. Once this part is done, of course you can play around with the animation how much you want. You can add multiple camera and just capture it from different angle. And if you're interested in that, in the lighting, cinematic lighting and animation, so don't miss my course bundle, which is made of multiple courses. I will put the link in the description. By purchasing from the link below, you are helping me and my website. So, and I'm really appreciated about it. So now let's animate the final touch of this part, abstract animation. So we already have this curvy effect, and we want to animate it in y-axis. So first of all, we want actually a duplication of these, and now we want to spend the time for animating the first one. Well, let's just start from the first one, and in this case I like to move it in this area, which is out of my scene. We can add another panel, and we press 0 to look at from the camera perspective, and let's switch to the material preview, or let's set it to solid mode to just see the camera perspective. And now you will see that it is not in capture, which is okay, and we want to animate it in y-axis. And we can of course right click and set the origin to geometry. Now we have its origin to geometry, which is perfect. Right click, and in this case we want to insert single keyframe, not an other channel, but it shouldn't be in the first frame, but we need to move it to the frame 205. That's because I want to see this animation with 1 second of delay. So once we had the 1 second, and from this time we will see these glowing energy effect will come into the action, and the length of this should be the length of this animation should be in frame 60. And then now we want to move it almost there and right click, insert another, and just take a look at it. Okay, so but we want to see it in the final result. So how we can fix it? Because this is curve, we can go to the properties, and then we open up in the bevel, in the geometry, we want to open up start and end mapping. Okay, so let's move to frame 50, and I like to set it to add a new keyframe to the end, and then before 60, before it has the 60 to 500 to 500 to 57, what I'm saying, 500 to 57, let's set it to 0 and try that, and add another keyframe to apply it. Now once it had, what? Just take a look at this one. It passing through this line, and once it start to actually inside this object, it will be hide it, so we no longer see it, and that's perfect. So instead of just animating these once and more, we just want to delete it. And in this case, I like to use another empty. This case can be cube, and make it smaller, but let's select it, and now let's move the 3D cursor there, shift S, select the empty, shift S and selection to cursor. You notice that we have actually the empty, and I want to parent these object to the cube empty. Control and P and choose object heap transform. Now instead of just animating these once more, from scratch, we can just press shift, select both of these, and press shift and D to duplicate it. Shift D to duplicate it. And it is what is what. And what we need to do now is just playing with this keyframe. So this one was started from 25, frame 25, and this one can start from frame 50. Let's see a preview. You can go to material preview. Oh, but this one I like to change its position. So the first one I like to change the position. So that's very easy. We just need to move the empty, nothing else. And now it's good to have in this line instead of the line. So that's too much of delay. Let's select it and move it to frame. Now it's better. Let's leave it at frame 40. And then we want to see the second one after it. That's very interesting. So we animate it, and now it's time for just testing it out. So let's go to the render properties. Everything is okay in this the output, and then let's go to render setting. We use cycle for render. Let's open up sampling. We don't need the viewport. Let's open up render, and in the render I choose 200. If you like, you can set it to higher max samples, and make sure to turn on denoising. And then we have the color management. I set it to medium high contrast. Let's turn it off, and you can see how it will affect low contrast and medium high contrast, and of course we have high contrast. So that's up to it's personal how you want to use it. And then I'm not going to touch these exposure and gamma. If you want to change something, it is best to change the color in the compositing. Now let's set it to wireframe, and I like to press F12, or we can open up render and just head the render image. So we have to wait a little bit to see how it will take the render. The render is finished now. I like to add some compositing. So let's open up the compositing. So we switch from layout to compositing. Here we don't like these. We don't need these timeline or drop sheets, and this panel as well. So press N to get rid of that. We just need to click on use node, and as soon as I do that, we will see the rendered image in the background. So we want to another node. Using node or importing node is pretty much as like in the 3D viewport. By pressing Shift A, you can have access to all of these nodes. So the first one is the viewer, and we want to find it in the group. I don't know why it's not working, but in the output, sorry. And now once you have node wrangler enabled, you just need to actually hold down Shift and right click to cut and create another point, as this allows us to add or stack multiple of these nodes. So the node wrangler setup is very easy. I've got a lot of requests about that, but it's pretty known plugin. We just need to go to add on and just type node wrangler, and you will have it. It comes with Blender, and then once you enable it, make sure to save the preferences. So now let's make these edges a little bit glowy. For that, we want to use glare effect, which is in the filter. So go to filter, and this is all the blurry effects, and here we have these glare connected to here, and we want to see these very bad results, but we don't like that. We want to set it to fog glow, as this gives us more realistic glowing effect. So for the max, we want to type 0.2. Well, first let's set the medium to high, and then for the max, let's set it to 0.2, and for the threshold, I like to set it to 7 or 8, and the size, let's make it really low to about 5. And I will just move it somewhere around here, And then we select the glare node, we press M. In this case we can turn it on and off. So this is the before and after. This effect will even affect the backside. So you can decide which of these is best to use. And once you're happy, you just need to take the animation render. So for animation, we go to layout. And in this time, we start from the first frame. We go to output, and the format is already fine. The frame is from 1 to 100. And the output folder, you have to find a good output folder. And once everything is done, you just need to go to the, let's set up the folder first. So I created this folder and called that for animation, and then let's change it to, and then accept. Once we click on the render animation, it starts to render all these frames, and it's depend on your machine. It will take a couple of hours or minutes. And that's it. You've just created a 3D abstract object with glowing energy effect. Now it's your turn to experiment with colors, shapes, and effects to make it your own. And if you're ready to take your skills even further, I also offer premium Blender courses packed with tips, tricks, and real projects to boost your creativity and confidence. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.